All right. Today we have Anne Scottlin joining us. How are you doing today, Anne?
I'm good, Sam. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm happy to have you on board. So let's see. The way I like to start off these interviews is just kind of getting an idea of what confidence means to you. So let's go ahead and start there.
What confidence means to me? What confidence means to me is regardless of whether you win or you lose, you love yourself for trying.
That is so perfectly put and powerful. Very straightforward. That might be like the quickest, easiest, most perfect answer right off the bat. I love that.
That's my summary.
Short and sweet. That's beautiful. I love it. That's perfect. I love
Yeah.
it.
And it's so true. It really is, because the winning and the losing in it, as an entrepreneur, you know you're going to lose sometimes.
That's true.
It's how you win. You can't win without losing. It's basically, it'd be a freak of nature if you did, right?
That's very true.
So,
Yeah, I don't think I've ever met any entrepreneur that has won all of their battles so far. So it's definitely a gamble.
Absolutely. But the secret to me is that you love yourself for trying, because that way you don't judge yourself by your winning or losing.
Right.
And you can still be proud of yourself. So it may not be easy if you have criticism from other people. But if you can have that confidence, it goes back a lot. And, I know we'll get to this because I also do coaching and so on and so forth, but kind of to your ability to love and appreciate yourself, which is sometimes one of the hardest things for all of us to do.
Oh, yeah.
But surprisingly, we push that to the bottom of our priorities when really it needs to be at the top, because it really governs everything. Yep. Your success, your failure, your health, your well-being. So that's a big one.
It's a big, important piece of your life that a lot of people kind of, like you said, push down into the side.
Yeah.
Something that's it's like those people at the gym that like to work on the front, but not necessarily anything in the back.
Right.
You can't cover that up. It's a huge foundation of your life balance. The way I like to kind of see it.
That's a good illustration. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's funny how that works out. But Anna, you are a multiple business owner and an entrepreneur. You've been those for a while now. So what was your first business, and how did you actually initially work up the confidence to just take that leap to start entrepreneurship and become a businesswoman?
Wow. It takes me back. I started my first business right out of college. And it was I started an educational international tour company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I ran the show from recruiting groups to creating the itineraries to actually guiding the tours in Europe and in Turkey. It was educational. It was based. It was very history themed. Had a specific focus. So that was my very first job. It was crazy. I didn't really have any money to start it with. My margins were really low, but mostly I really, really wanted to travel, and I had traveled some. But I really, really wanted to travel. And so maybe didn't make a lot of money, but I got to do the traveling. I got to make a little money. So it was a great first business. It was fun. It was challenging. You want to know how I had the confidence? You asked me how I had the confidence. You're going to laugh. I did it because someone told me I couldn't.
Fair enough. I think that's a really big fuel to a lot of people. I know I have been in similar situations where I'm like, okay, I can't. I don't really want to, but now I'm going to. So
yeah.
Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, no, it had been a previous boss of mine, and someone I had worked for someone in the university I was in, so someone in academia, and I had kind of bounced this business idea off them, like probably around my senior year. And they were kind of shot it down like, oh, you would have to have a PhD. No one will ever listen to you. I think there was a little bit, you're a woman. I don't know. In that particular environment, I was going to a college in the South at the time. There was still a little bit of that, like, right. Yeah, well, I was just like, that is old not cool.
Definitely an old way of thinking.
Yeah. My boyfriend thought it was lame, and the work, it was incredibly hard. But the thing was, I didn't care. Yeah. I just did it anyway.
Good.
And it was awesome. And it was awesome. I had so much fun. And the only reason, I mean, I literally, that business wound up because we were in the recession and people stopped traveling. So it was sort of like I had tours on the books and it just went away. And a lot of people in startups, a lot of entrepreneurs, had to shift and pivot at that point. So I was one of those.
It's kind of a good thing you're not in that realm necessarily anymore.
Yeah.
During this COVID.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, I know. I feel so much for those people though, because I'm just like, that is incredibly difficult, not just from like the corporate tourism, but in all the countries of the world with it.
Yeah.
People were depending on tourism for their livelihood. So yeah, I hope and pray that can pick up again for people soon, because that's really hard.
Yeah, it's been an incredibly insane year for a lot of people.
For sure.
Blessed to be able to have this opportunity to work on things that might help people, kind of uplift them in their time of need, Yeah.
Oh, and it's part 2 of your question. I just didn't want to forget, because you asked, how did I get started my first business? And I've had multiple businesses, and what did I learn? And I think, that was my earliest one. So I just thought I'd share that for fun. But these days, I've learned for myself, at least, that if you really want to start a business and you don't have a lot of funding, it's best to pursue it as part of a portfolio career. That's a personal choice, but I've seen it work with many of my clients as well over time, which is basically you're going to have several pots on the stove, because you have to survive. You have to pay your bills. You have to eat. You have to invest money in your new business. And if you throw everything into one gamble and it doesn't work, or it doesn't work as quickly as you think it would, which is very often the case, you need something to fall back on. So, I've always told my clients too, the more pots you have on the stove, the better. If you can have 3 or 4 things going, whether those are part-time or, full-time. As entrepreneurs, we can work multiple full-time jobs, it seems. Do it so that one of those will always be paying the bills. And then when one doesn't work out, you can take a new look at that, but you're not going to sink, and you don't have to go into the depths of despair to be dramatic.
No, that's what it feels like for any entrepreneur that is drowning from their one main source of income. It becomes very scary, especially when the pandemic is going on. It's like, one pot, as you're putting it, it's like, you cannot rely on just that one single one. You have to have several other ones in place, and you gradually grow. Of course, I'm not saying start 5 all at once, but you work
right. Yes.
Yeah. So it doesn't make sense to.
Yeah. I mean, and even when things are going well, it never hurts to be a diversified business person. If you do it with intention, you're not spread so thin that nothing relates to each other. Although sometimes someone has a fantastic bread and butter job, maybe they hate it. But if that's consistent for them and that can support your other ventures, then hang on to that as long as you can. Or even now, like I said, when things are going well, I mean, I have my motivational coaching and teaching company, which is called The Business of Joy, where I work with corporations and individuals about bringing joy back into the workplace, bringing joy back into their life. Who said that working in life couldn't be a joyful, happy place, right? And there's techniques, and there's so many just awareness that we can create around it. So I have that business. I'm also a consultant right now for a new tech wellness startup called Hey the Loop. So I'm working that as a consultant. Okay. I also work in the entertainment business. Sometimes next year I'm directing a film. So then that's another pot on the stove. And quite honestly, as I know, because we've chatted on social media. I mean, my social media is basically a whole nother business. I mean, when you talk about the time of investment of time and money, but it's also critical to the others. So it's all serving each other, even though it's very diversified.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're a prime example of, because I've seen different platforms that you use, and you have a really, I don't even know how you do it. Your Twitter feed is it's just filled with gold all day. So
that's awesome.
I see the quotes that you put on there. I'm like, how does she do this and still run businesses? I'm like, it just blows me away how well you have your life managed and kind of put together. So that's pretty.
Oh, well, thank you. On the ground, we might question some of that. Like some of my best tweets come about at about 1:45 a.m.
That's the best time to come up with it. Yeah.
That's what I say. I'm like, it happens when it happens.
Yep, it's true.
But yeah, and it's all just coming from that same place. I feel like a lot of what I write is comes from a very authentic place where I'm hitting reality on the ground. Often I'm writing about something that's going on in my own life right at that time, or a lesson I've learned, or something I've learned from my clients. So it's kind of like there's always more, which is a good thing.
Of course. Well, it's better to have more to give than running out of ideas.
Yeah.
Until 1:45 a.m. Then you have your next idea. So
it's
that's
true.
fine. Hey, whenever it comes from, you got to kind of write it down and run with it whenever it comes to you. But that's great. I love that. So what would you actually say is the hardest part about starting a business, and how do you work through all of that in order to just kind of push through those obstacles?
Yeah. I mean, gosh, I guess, there's several ways to look at that, but number one is really just a consistent investment of time. If it's a business, it's not a hobby. So you can't treat it like a hobby. And sometimes that's challenging when you are developing a portfolio career and you realize you're going to be doing multiple things at once. I'm not saying you can't have a hobby. I mean, truly half of my hobbies turn into businesses. But
that's the best way to start a business, around something that you love to do already. Yeah.
Yeah. But once you really decide, I'm going to monetize this, I'm going to take this forward, I'm going to start marketing, and I have a product and I want to reach people with, then it's kind of like, okay, this is a job now. I need to consistently show up. I need to get organized. That's really hard for a lot of people. I mean, this year, my go-to organizer has been Trello, just because I can have as many boards as I need. I can move things from, to do, doing, done. I mean, just getting those, compartmentalizing, but staying organized without having to create some really exhaustive system, detailed system that that isn't manageable, because you really have to show up and work with intention. So working with intention, treating it like a job, and and it doesn't, showing up. And I'm gonna like stick my foot in a whole bunch of stuff right now, because every self-help business book out there talks about how you have to wake up at 4 a.m. and do your meditation and do your journaling and hit the ground running by 5:30. And I'm like, it ain't gonna happen.
No. Yeah.
At least half of us are not morning people. So quit beating yourself up for not showing up at 4:30 a.m. and show up when you works for you. Show up when you're actually productive. I mean, I'm really rolling by about 10. I am really in my productive zone by, say, 10 in the morning. And then I tend to take like wellness breaks. I don't have kids, so I mean, I have a little more time than, say, a mom who's working. But I take wellness. I'll take a long lunch. I'll go exercise. I'll go running. I'll come back. You break it up. But then I work late. But that's how I sustain it. I can sustain work in like 2 to 3 hour chunks really easily. Needed nice long breaks in between, and then not necessarily healthy. Entrepreneurial though, often working until 11, 12, 1, because sometimes that's my best flow. But I know that about myself, and I think started giving myself permission. I used to just beat myself up over I just can't get up. I just can't do it. I have tried everything. You have no idea.
Oh, I can imagine. I am not I wouldn't say I'm a morning person unless it's something that I'm very excited to do. So
yes, yeah.
But I recently came across, I think, an article I was reading. I forgot who wrote it, but it was like make, I think, 10% increments of changes in your life. And that means,
yes, I love
if
that.
you want to eventually wake up at 4 a.m., then start by waking up at 7 every day.
Yes.
That to 6:45 every day.
Absolutely.
So
and I have done that, by the way. And I did work back. My greatest streak was I got a personal, when the gyms were all still open, I got a personal trainer 3 days a week at 6:30 a.m.
Oh, good. Okay. Did that help you get up in the morning? Or?
It did, because one, I'd paid for it.
True.
Two, this lovely gal who was my trainer was getting up, and I was her first client. Okay. So I was really kind of screwing her if I didn't show up. It was like, so it created some accountability. Here comes the coach. Created some accountability, got me up, got me moving. And And I was so tired by the end of the day, I would be like falling in bed at like,
Oh, yeah.
9:30 at night because I couldn't stay awake anymore. So it absolutely can be done.
Yeah.
But there's a fine line between discipline when you find it effective. You've got to give it the 21 days. You got to give it the time to create a new habit. And sometimes even when you do that and it's going to work consistently, sometimes you will still fall back into a habit that's effective.
True.
So realize you're unique. None of us fit the exact same mold. Find a way that makes it work for you. Oh yeah, I had one other thought when you asked me about like the hardest part. Well, it's a clue more about, starting your own business.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is, don't tell everybody about it at the outset.
Yeah.
Because
Why do you believe that?
it can be tremendously disheartening, disappointing. You're so much more likely to quit. And I can say this as a coach as well. So many times the people that are closest to us are the people who they think they're doing it for our best interest or for our own good. Like, oh, but that's such a bad use of your money or of your time, or you would be so good at this. Why are you so focused on that? And it's not that we can't listen to that, but when you kind of put all your cards out at the same time, you're really inviting a lot of criticism. And I've seen it happen with a lot of my clients too, entrepreneurial clients, where they kind of like tell all their friends, they tell all their family. And then the second they hit the first bump, everyone's like, yeah, I told you, why don't you go get a normal job? Or why don't you use the degrees you already have? Or why do you feel like you have to go do this thing? And sometimes their sort of cynical logic starts to wear you down and you really start wondering, what am I doing? So
self-doubt. Yep.
Yeah. If you have a confidant or two, that's great. If you're working with a motivator or, a professional coach, that's even better, because then you've got someone who literally is paid to have your best interest in mind,
Right.
And they're not as emotionally attached to you or your outcomes or what people think of you.
Or jealousy by any means.
Jealousy, right? Isn't that sad
That's been the biggest, I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, that people will hold us back because they kind of secretly want us to fail.
Yeah.
It's like a human nature thing.
Yeah, it's almost like they don't want you to get ahead because they're going to be left behind, not really having the drive and motivation to do what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And I definitely relate to what that
even significant others, my current husband is incredibly supportive of my work and my time, but my ex, who I was in a long-term relationship with, he was not. And he made it very difficult to move forward, to be assertive, kind of that constantly tearing you down. And I think part of it was that he was afraid I would succeed and he wasn't going to look so good anymore.
I mean, glad that you guys separated so that you could find someone that was ultra supportive of all the endeavors that you want to put yourself into, And
that's a really good point too. I mean, for all entrepreneurs is, not everyone can work out their social situation ideally to match their business plans, but when you can, take the steps you need to do to create the time and space. If you're getting ready to start a family, maybe put that off a year or two and let yourself get those first couple years of, the hard entrepreneurial startup work out. So you're not missing out on your kids' time or, and finding a supportive friends or significant other. It's tremendously helpful. And I can say that as a coach as well, right?
Yeah,
you totally get it.
It's definitely difficult to find someone that just in general understands how busy it is to start a business, but to run a business, okay, it might be a little bit smoother, but I feel like the startup phase is like the most time consuming. There's a lot of talking and networking involved and planning and all of that goes into play. So
and long hours is really the hardest part because the work is never done. And
it's true.
You're going to neglect people in your life a lot of times. And if that's going to happen, then you need to be very intentional about planning that when you are with them, you're spending quality time with them.
It's true.
And right now, so many people are working from home because of the situation that we find ourselves in. And so there's sort of this weird thing that's happening, whereas if you live in a household with other people or with a significant other, you see each other like 24/7. And so you kind of feel though like you're with them, and then you both just work constantly.
Yeah, there is.
They kind of like day and night, and there's no quality time. It's like, you have to say, this is when we close the electronics. Or if there is going to be electronic, it's because we're going to watch a movie together while we eat dinner, and we're going to talk and we're going to hang out. And that's like, but that's that time.
Right.
This is our time together. Or like my husband and I, we'll go exercising together outside, and we get that hour, which is great. We have to exercise anyway. I mean, you need it for this, if nothing else, right? We get to talk, we get to shoot the breeze, we get to like have those conversations without all the other distractions in the way. It kind of gets us out of our rut environment. and yeah, it really helps.
I mean, let's be honest. An entrepreneur doesn't have 9 to 5. We have whenever to whenever.
Yeah,
it's kind of a good foundation to have an understanding that you both. Is your husband an entrepreneur as well, or
he is? Yes, perfect. He is. So it's great, and he's also a portfolio professional like myself. So there's a couple things on the stove, and then something that's consistently providing income so that he can afford to expand on these other things. And so yeah, we actually have a really complementary lifestyle. I think if you either have that, which is a tremendous gift, or you're with someone who has a consistent income for your household, either way, that's going to be a tremendous help, unless you just have unlimited resources, which most of us never started with. So
that's very true. Then you have no risks involved because you're always covered.
Yeah. What's a loss is a loss right?
It's true. Yeah, it's true. So, and last time we talked, I remember mentioning to you that one of the things that I really loved about you was your living life strategically approach. Can you go into a little bit more detail about how that's benefited you and also for your clients as well?
Oh yeah, for sure. Living life strategically. I do too, because I think it doesn't mean we can take the guesswork out of living, but it means we're living with intention. And living with intention is building a boat and setting out on the sea with a destination in mind. It's not like I'm just going to jump in the water and see what happens. It's like you're taking steps, you're creating accountability, with my clients, or anyone. I would say, one of the first steps living strategically is really to find a thought partner. It's tremendously helpful, whether that's a confidant or a mentor or a professional coach, someone who can help you make an achievable plan, review those plans with you. So it's not always you. So you get to bounce those ideas off of someone you trust, help you to follow it, encourage you in implementing it. And then the other thing I say to everyone is have a plan and then know that the plan will never go to plan. Be adaptable.
I was not expecting you to say that because a lot of people would argue, well, make a plan and stick to it. I was not anticipating you to say expect it to change.
Have you ever stuck to a plan rigidly and had it give you the desired outcome?
Not to a T, no.
Okay.
So I love that you're saying that because it almost plans for you to strategically plan for the unexpected.
Absolutely. But if you anticipate that, even anticipating, and a conversation for another day, even when you anticipate that failure will be part of your plan because that's what is necessary for you to succeed, it can take a lot of the sting out. It can take a lot of the depression out. It can take a lot of those. So having a strategic plan, knowing that it won't always go to plan, and then learning to be adaptable, learning to pivot quickly. Yep. Those are real talents of a gifted entrepreneur, because that's the person who keeps going even when they fail, or he keeps going, even when something goes wrong. For me in my own life, I think, at least for myself, like my number one way to live strategically as an entrepreneur is to never sacrifice what you've created or the time you've invested in it.
Yes.
Never sacrifice what you've created and the time you've invested in it. And by that, I mean, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't start from scratch. Never throw away the spare parts that you've created. Right. If you go back to the old idea of a mad scientist in a lab or someone who's, building things with their hands, don't throw that stuff away. And by that, I mean, reappropriate. If no one wants lawnmowers, then turn your lawnmowers into go-karts. I don't know, right? Reappropriate what you've already created, or if you have to, and you have a product that's not working out, create a new market. If no one wants to buy the game you've created, then write a graphic novel where the characters play the game.
Yep.
Create the market for yourself when they're not ready for what you have to offer right now. Or if like absolutely, no one wants to buy what you're selling and you can't reappropriate or you can't exactly pivot, then learn that lesson so fully that you're actually able to capitalize on it, right? So learn then, if people don't want something, right? Learn what people don't want and then sell them what they really do want. So if people don't want your checklist app, then create an app that eliminates the need for checklists altogether. Right? So you're never actually throwing anything away. It's recycle, reutilize, reappropriate, pivot, but not like just close the door, throw it in the garbage can and walk away. That's such a waste. There's always something to salvage and move forward with.
That is a very prime example, again, of an entrepreneurial mindset. And I love that you just gave such a huge example just out of thin air and just decided this is a good example, and it was perfect. It made a lot of sense, because there's been times when I have closed, ideas that I've had because I felt like, okay, well, I don't really know if I have enough resources to make this happen. And I just kind of abandon it and I walk away and I start doing something else. And then I go back to it thinking, hey, this would be kind of cool to use this for that, kind of thing. So, but it's entrepreneurship is such a new thing to me that I'm still kind of strengthening that muscle and way of thinking to where you're at. And this is where I hope to be heading as well, is to use things to my advantage strategically, I guess you could say, right? So I love that. That's perfect.
That's awesome. It's I always think it's kind of like Santa's workshop, right? There's always all these pieces and all these toys and all this stuff, and there's always something that can be used in a different way. Right. And it just feels like kind of like a fun example. And I'm sure you've read this. I have this one tweet that I really love that really fits in here, which it talks about dedication, right? And to me, part of dedication is learning to be smart, to reappropriate, to reinvest your time, to stay dedicated to what you've created. Right. And I think it says, wishing is desire without effort. Wishing is desire without effort. Trying is the desire to make an effort when it's not too inconvenient. Trying is the desire to make an effort when it's not too inconvenient.
We need Yoda. Do not try.
And dedication is consistent effort and the willingness to start over. And that's really the key.
That's the ultimate level to be at. When you decide something and you dedicate your time to do something, wishing and trying no longer becomes in your vocabulary when it comes to the certain thing that you have your eye on. So one of the things I always have, I have a little whiteboard in my room and it always says eyes on the prize.
Nice. I love it.
I wake up and I see it. I'm like, that's right. I'm going to go for it, because I just have, like when you create a wish board, you have all the things that you want. And I had someone, at my old job, he came up to me and I showed him, like, look at this picture. What do you think? He goes, yeah, that's really nice. But I think it was my dream house that I was picking everything out. I had like a certain room for, my music equipment. I'm a musician as well. And I had other stuff. And he's like, well, it's great, but how are you going to get it? And I had an answer for him. I told him I had an answer for him. And he's like, at the time it was a different business model, but at the time it was still very dead set on, this is how I'm going to get it. It's not a wish. It's not a try. I'm going to get this, and he's like, I didn't expect you to have an answer. That's really great. I'm really happy for you. Like, how can I help? I'm like, wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was just a huge, like, you know how when you just feel so confident and proud of yourself, like you wanted to pat my own self on the back because I had an answer for him that most people would say, yo, you're just dreaming. And I had an answer, and I was just so proud of that moment.
Because you had a plan.
Exactly.
You had a plan. Yep. And even though your plan didn't go to plan, you were able to pivot. You were able to not throw away even the mental investment that you had made. Yep. And you're able to take that and reappropriate that, which again, to me, that is again the heart of what I believe is entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's the key. And that's, so I know you're an advocate for thinking or teaching people to think differently, right? As a life management coach in your profession, that's kind of key. right? To be able to think differently. So how do you actually help your clients do that? And how do you think that it affected their overall confidence?
Sure. Yeah. So confidence, confidence is such a big part of all of it, which is kind of like what we started out with at the very beginning.
Yep.
When I work as a motivational coach with individual clients, I love creating a very customized plan for them. It's very much focuses on capitalizing on the strengths they already have instead of trying to eliminate defects. So there's a big difference there between appropriating and focusing on the strengths versus trying to eliminate the defects. I think the kind of coaching or training or mentoring that's just about eliminating defects is very painful.
Yeah.
And sometimes people get addicted to that kind of treatment, actually.
Yeah.
They kind of want the punishment part, but it's not really going to enable them and empower them to move forward. However, the fact that I happen to be more of a night person, tapping into that strength instead of beating myself up about not being a morning person and making some of my most productive hours in the evening, because that's when I'm naturally at my best, then that is customizing a process that works for me instead of trying to force myself into some cookie cutter mold that was someone else raves about. But guess what? I'm not them. I have to find my own. And so that's what I love working with my clients, is really creating a customized system for them. And as you know, also a lot of my new focus last year has been around joy and bringing joy into the process, because how amazing is it to have, work with someone who can motivate you and support you and give you healthy, friendly accountability, and also be checking on you to make sure you're staying in a place of wellness, of emotional wellness, of joy. Because when you get to be creative, it's like when you're a kid, when you're really having fun creating something as a kid, you're kind of in your element. You're just so into it and you're so excited about it. And it's like, that is still there. We've just sort of programmed it out of, oh, that's not how I'm supposed to behave. That is still there. So if we can tap back into that, then that really empowers us from the inside. But to answer your question and get more specifically, so for people like who are maybe not my clients, but I would share this anyway, which is, when you talk about confidence, a really good thing to just know and hold is that really you're always better off than you think you are.
Right.
We always are down on ourselves. We're always like, oh, I did this wrong, or I didn't do this right, or I missed this deadline, or I fell short, or it's impossible. But it's a matter of perspective. And as you know from some of the stuff I write, I love talking about perspective.
And definitely relate to a lot of things that you post about. Definitely.
Perspective, because when you have this myopic view because you're stuck in it, you feel like you're stuck in it and you're looking out and you're just like, ugh. But if we had the magic wand and we could step out and see the big picture, a lot of times the next breakthrough is so close. And if you quit now, you would have never known how close you were. Yep. So basically just realizing that in most cases, in our current circumstances, you're usually better off than you think you are. We're very fortunate. Most of us who are, watching this don't live in a war zone. Most of us don't worry about where our next meal is coming from. And because of that, we're really never as bad off as we think we are. So first of all, realize that how you feel doesn't necessarily have to affect your confidence. That's a whole nother conversation. We could go and do one of my workshops, but yeah.
It's very true.
Kind of getting over a dependency on how you feel as a measure of where you are.
Yeah. And it's like that, that picture where it shows, you quit just before, as a guy digging a trench or something, and there's like a pot of gold like an inch away, and he's just like, oh, I'm tired, I'm giving up. And you have no idea how close you are. So it's like, for me, I know a lot of going into this summit series that I'm putting on, it's been a lot of, I know this is a lot of work that I'm putting into it, but I know that once it's done, and it's going to be, it's not about me necessarily. It's about the viewers, people that are watching right now. It's about how many lives can you impact from this one interview? Well, how many can I interview, or how many can I impact with 20 plus interviews?
Right.
It's just like, this is maybe the gold that or the diamonds that they're looking for in their life that's going to maybe help give them that motivation to keep moving forward. And I love I love sharing stories of how confidence has really affected people's lives. So I want to ask you, how has confidence brought you happiness and freedom into your life?
Wow, that's a really good question. Confidence in my own life. Well, I would say that number one, the biggest change in my own personal levels of confidence is daily learning to care less and less what other people think.
I love it.
Because honestly, confidence is really just about what other people think. Because we're afraid we're going to get judged. We're afraid that people are going to tell us we're a failure. We're afraid that people are going to say, oh, you didn't live up to the mark, or you didn't do what you said you did. And since we were little kids, we've lived in this environment, this pressure. And because there were times where whoever the adult was in our environment, was on us because they said, oh, you failed, you didn't do it right, you didn't, then we kind of have this loss of confidence. Right. But as you start to care less about what other people think, it is literally the greatest freedom you will ever discover and the greatest source of confidence. Now, I'll clarify that. That doesn't mean you have to go out and just be a big a-hole in the world. That's not what that means.
No, it's not, because that seems to be... No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But it does mean that, in fact, the people who behave that way are usually some of the least confident people.
It's true.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have to use that as their MO, as their face in the world.
As the front side of the gym, like we
being a bully. Yeah, right. But when you learn that you're really better off than you think you are, that you can have confidence because, life is so short. Life is so short. Do you really want to spend your entire life worrying about what other people think, or do you really want to see what you could actually do? And it's not a thing that happens overnight, but I will say that I went from having much, much lower levels of confidence and, just kind of afraid of having a voice and afraid of failure and afraid, easily intimidated by what I used to consider authority figures, whether it was they were professional or personal or whatever that is. Again, it's really in your imagination. So it's like, it's not even happening in the room 99% of the time. So who cares what they think? And it's easier said than done, but it's a journey. And I will say that from working with my clients, a huge part for me and for my clients of tapping into your joy is a huge part of that's about confidence. And it's, I think, a really missed thing that nobody really talks about. So again, more for another day, but that's an exciting place. When you're coming from that kid place, that exuberance, that place of joy in your creativity, you have a lot more confidence and you just stop caring as much.
It's true. Yeah. I've noticed just in myself, the more, the more conversations I open up to approach for guests to be on the series, I'm just thinking, wow, I just feel a lot less intimidated. And I know you said that it's probably best to not mention the ideas ahead of time because of outside opinions and it might kind of drag you down. But I've had nothing but positive feedback from
That's amazing.
with you especially. You really uplifted me on the first Zoom call that we had.
Nice.
To discuss a little bit more in depth about all this, and I was just...
That's great.
But now I feel really great if all these people are thinking that this might be a good idea. I'm like, I really don't see how it could be a bad idea, but then again, I might be biased because it's my idea. So I just feel a lot more relaxed and confident about it because I'm a lot more relaxed about it. So I just love that I'm less caring about what people are going to think when I post anything to do with what I'm working on, because I know it's for the greater good. It's not for the people that are going to be having a negative opinion about it. It's for people that are watching this right now. It's for myself. It's an outlet in a positive way. And I just love that it does come down to thinking what other people are going to feel about you or think about you. And I just love how you put that in a way. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. So that's
No, I mean, it really doesn't. It doesn't matter, right? And it's like, we're like, well, who am I? But it's like that quote, but who am I not to?
right. Yeah.
Why am I stuck in the who am I? I'm so small. Who am I not to? Who says I don't get to do it? Nobody.
It's true. And do you know how big the world is compared to, one person?
Right?
Not everybody is going to love you, and
No.
they're not supposed to. That's why there's people that are hugely successful and they have a ton of hate on them.
Yeah.
Because
No, it's so true.
They can't please everybody, and you can't. No way you can.
No. No, and a lot of times they come at it from a point of view of being completely self-obsessed about what they're doing and about their obsessed. They're obsessed. I can't get that off. Self-obsessed with what they're doing and just obsessed with themselves and their outcome. And they're not really doing it to make the world a better place. They're not really doing it with others in mind. There's no problem with you making a living, but also making the world a better place. And when you're in that mentality, though, when you're in that mindset, that heart set, then you're probably going to end up being a lot less bitter, because instead of constantly looking for every way that the world makes you wrong or criticizes you, you're more looking at the small successes of the people that you've been able to help, the people you've reached out to, the people you've helped support. And then that's so gratifying. And when your heart's in the right place, there's just not so much room for that negative bitterness to sit in and just grow.
Exactly. It's kind of going back to what you said before, that it does take time, obviously, for you to get to that place. And I know, just speaking from experience too, it's taken me a few years to get to where I am today, to where I don't care with the way I look or sound to people that I know, because I know it can be kind of nerve-wracking to put yourself out there, and people that you know will see it. I'm a lot more comfortable with strangers seeing it than it would be for my friends that have no idea what I'm doing and see me transition from a music guy in bands and all that to, oh well, now he's kind of like going into the entrepreneurship. That's kind of odd. Where did that come from? But it doesn't matter. This is just my journey. But
no, but I relate to that.
Yeah,
I relate to exactly what you're saying. And that's that same thing about those are the kinds of people that sometimes need to find out last. Not because there's anything wrong with them or because they're not your friends, because they already have unintentionally kind of put you in a cookie cutter.
Right,
and it's not their fault. It's just human nature. But if you listen to all those people who are, care about you and they're not going to share your vision, then better to reach out even to strangers and take those first few steps forward until you have a little momentum going. And then you're a little less afraid of what they're going to say anyway, because you've got some momentum going and you've got something to show for it. So
and you're
what are you
already
going to do?
feeling the mild success of what you're
Yeah.
working on. I love that.
Totally.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's great. So I know you touched on a lot of great pieces of confidence building tips, but what would you say, based on your own experience, what would you say is like the biggest key piece of confidence building advice that you can give to our audience? What would that be? That's a big question, considering you already gave a lot of great pieces.
So what is, rephrase that for me one more time?
Yeah. So based on your own experiences, if you had one key piece of confidence building advice to give to our audience, it could be in anything, business or personal, what would it be?
Forgive yourself for not being perfect.
Short and sweet and powerful. I love it. I love it. No wonder why these thoughts come to you at 1:45 in the morning. You have to tweet them. I love it. It's beautiful.
I do. Perfect. I know I do. And a part B to that is mentoring someone else in need. I really believe it's a twofold process. One, learning to forgive yourself for not being perfect first. And then secondly, don't make it just about you. Whether it's in your business life or your personal life or whatever it is, then mentor someone else. Because whenever you're giving, you're an open conduit. Yeah. That means there's flow that's moving through you. If you're just receiving and keeping here you're going to get very stuck and you're going to get frustrated and aggravated. Your emotions are going to get stuck. There's sort of like the self-serving concept that we kind of feel like is our survival mechanism actually stops our flow. But if you're receiving and then you're always giving and mentoring, giving back in some way in your life, you're going to be at your maximum creative flow. It's just a process. And for those who may not, who'd be like, I don't know what she's talking about, try it for a while. And then, shoot me a message because I want to see if it's changing, shifting things for you. Yeah. Tell me how it's working.
It's funny because I just recently started mentoring someone. I won't obviously mention who, but it's a younger kid. And I didn't really know exactly where I would be going with that. But as I started mentoring him, I was just thinking, wow, this is actually kind of forcing me to think outside of the box and kind of figure out how this is actually benefiting me too. And it just opens up a lot of things that I didn't expect it to open. So I can definitely vouch for what you're saying about that. That's a really great, again, perspective. That's a really great thing that perspective will give you is mentoring someone in need. So that's
I think it helps. It really makes a difference, and it just keeps you in your flow, and it helps keep your joy going.
It's true. I love it. The power of giving, right?
Yep.
So you have a new book coming out in January. Can you give us a little sneak peek on what the overall overview of that might be?
Absolutely. So I have a new book coming out, and it's going to be called Your Joyful Life. And I cannot wait. Yeah, I cannot wait to share that with all of you. So right now in the next very soon, I'm not exactly sure how soon, we're going to be having you can even watch for it on Twitter. We're going to be having a survey to let viewers vote on the cover for the book, which is kind of fun.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then we're going to enter a pre-order phase in January. And then we'll be, going to the full out book launch after that. So I'm super excited about it. I think you're going to love it, Sam, because not only does it have a lot of stuff that you've kind of seen before from my work, but it's going to have new stuff. And this is also a very visual book. It's packed with illustrations and magnificent photography. You know how I kind of like the whole experience to motivate and inspire. So it's going to be a really beautiful book, and I think people are really going to enjoy it. So you can watch for that. You can check out my website, which is AnneScottlin.com. That's ANNESCOTTLIN. And in fact, there's a freebie I have up there right now that you might want to jump on, which is really cool. It's just something I created just a few weeks ago and got it all ready to go for you guys. And it's a Find Your Joy journal. So it's a 7-week process with just like 2 easy questions in the morning and 2 easy questions at night that help you start identifying and recognizing where you bring joy into your life, and then also recognizing where the blocks are that are keeping you from that joy that is really your birthright just as a human being. So it's a super fun thing. It's free. Go on the website. I think if you scroll about halfway down that first page, you'll find it. You can just register and get it right away. So, and that'll be a fun thing to play with and, anticipating for the book to come out. So
I love it. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you for providing that to us. I'm definitely
absolutely
a copy of that right now because I love the idea of starting and ending my day with like gratitude.
Yes, and having joy as that sense of sort of well-being, as bringing that to your work as an entrepreneur in the morning, and then having some satisfaction with how that's gone or what you've learned every evening, which is really awesome. And you are already on my Twitter feed. I would encourage anyone else who likes several doses of daily inspiration and motivation, hop on over to my feed. We have a great Twitter family there. It's at Anne Scottlin. And then also on the website or on Twitter, you'll find I do have a weekly video podcast too. So you can check that out if you'd like to see what's new with me and what new content I'm coming up with. So any and all of the above.
Something new, always something new that you're providing with everyone.
Yeah.
It is very, very inspiring content. So
thanks.
I do definitely recommend checking out Anne on her Twitter, which is where she's most active, I believe, right?
Yeah. I'm on Instagram and a few other things, but Twitter is sort of, that's the home base, and it gets the most posts and the most interactions. So yeah, it's a great place to start.
So we can find you there, Anne. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this with me. It's been a huge honor to have you on board. Is there any last final thoughts that you'd like to kind of just give before we cut you loose?
Well, thanks for letting me be here, Sam. Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I'm super excited about this summit. I'm super excited about the work that you're doing and your commitment to giving back and supporting the world and to make it a better place and supporting entrepreneurs, which I think is super exciting. And I would just say to you and to everyone, just really think about tapping into your joy again. Find your joy and bring it to your business. And, my company is called The Business of Joy. So bringing joy to your business, bringing it to your personal life, and then, living abundantly. Why not? Who cares what other people think?
Exactly. Perfect. Yeah. There's no need. We already learned how it doesn't benefit you in any way. So
That's right.
that's perfect. And thank you so much. It's been a huge honor, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you. And I know we'll have to do another one of these at some point, because there's a lot
Absolutely.
of things that we can still talk about. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate
Thanks,
you being
Sam.
here. Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.